we're going to be on the record, right?
Yeah. So my feeling is let's just put the information out there and allow people to experience the interviews that we conduct, and then whoever is in need for that special thing that we talk about, that's what's going to resonate with those people that need that, and then
what's in it for me is like that.
Yeah, they're going to come to us and say, hey, how can you help me? And then we're going to say, well, I may not be able to help you with that certain thing, but I know someone else that can. Patrick.
Okay,
Gillis
cool.
can help you with that. So we just help each other. You know?
How's this? So does this look good for you right here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Does this look? I should get rid of my my Fordham Rams thing.
So how would you? So this is what I would do. This is how I've done my interviews. I would say, hey, folks, we're here with. Say welcome again. I would say welcome to the Freak Zone. I'm Trey. Welcome to the Freak Zone. We're here with Patrick Gillis, and we're gonna have a little conversation here. Hopefully, some of you guys will get something out of that. And then I would just shoot you the questions, and then we just have a conversation.
Yeah. So here's I'm just gonna go right now, the lack of or anything.
So they're gonna do an introduction.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Pat. What's your last name, by the way?
Fannin.
Fannin.
F is a Frank, A-N-N-I-N. Yeah.
Okay, Fannin. Was that Irish?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those names that sounds. I'm Irish too. It's an Irish sounding name. I've never. It's like. Yeah. Okay. Is that a little crooked?
A little bit.
Yeah. See, that's something like with me, if it's slightly crooked, I won't post it. It would, because I know that someone will just sit there and tell me, that thing's crooked. I'm like, you didn't listen to the content? No, I looked at it, it's crooked. All right, does that not look crooked?
That's pretty good. Sit down and you'll get a better perspective because your height will. Yeah,
I think it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, hey, this is Pat Gillis. This is the first issue of Interview the Trainer that I've been working with. That sounds like shit. Hey, this is Pat Gillis, and welcome to our first episode of Interview the Trainer. What I'll be doing is interviewing a whole bunch of personal trainers throughout New York and getting an idea of what they are focusing in on, how their business is going through COVID, and just a whole bunch of different ideas and strategies in how to stay in shape. I myself, I'm a 52-year-old personal trainer. Trey
50
is 50. What I'm looking at with a lot of things is how people age and stay in shape as they age, or we're gonna start this one over just because there's a lot of marbles in my mouth. So.
That was good. I liked it.
Hey, how are you? This is Pat for our first episode of Train the Trainer, Interview the Trainer. Hey, this is. Hey, this is Pat. How are you? This is the first episode of Interview the Trainer. I am with Trey Fannin.
Hello, folks. Thanks for having me, Patrick. I really appreciate it.
Good. Thanks for being with me for the initial episode.
Absolutely.
What we're trying to do, Trey and I, is we're just trying to get, educate New York City about the different trainers that we have here and the people that we know in our network. I've been a trainer for the last 20 years. Trey, how long have you been a trainer?
20 years. Yeah.
20 years, and you were in the military first?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
You were in the Army?
Army, yeah, for almost 6 years. Yeah.
All right, he had a little more training. I played football in college, but his training was a little more serious, I guess.
Well, just a different purpose.
Yeah, you had to stay alive. I just had to look good for Saturday night.
I waited till I was 34 to play football.
Did you really?
And then I blew my knee out.
Where'd you play football at 34?
Down on East Village, East Riverside Park.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah, blew my knee out on the AstroTurf. The last game of the season.
Was it the old AstroTurf?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the old stuff that was like that you have like on boat carpeting and stuff like that you find in marinas.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and it's like Velcro on your arms.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I just lost the whole.
Plenty of skin.
Yeah, skin grafts after that. Yeah, we had that when I played football in college. We had one of and I remember they put this new turf in, and we were all excited to see it. And it was like a rug.
Yeah.
I mean, it had a crown like this, and it had the. It felt like you were walking on like half of the width of a wrestling match or something, a wrestling mat rather.
Yeah.
And which I believe is even adds. So you can't slide on the surface.
Oh, no. Well, you can.
You can, yeah, when it's wet, and then it leaves your whole skin, your arm behind.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I think is that when you kind of sink into the mat, that even causes your foot to plant even deeper,
and that's what
which
my knee
puts your knee at an even
Torqued.
worse position, worse position. All right, so I wanted to talk to Trey a little bit and see how he's doing right now through our coronavirus. And so if anyone else has any questions or suggestions or anything like that, feel free to leave a comment. Trey, real quickly, I guess the first thing is, what do you think are the key ingredients of fitness and staying in shape?
Well, depends on your objective. So I break it down to, if I see somebody for the first time, they come to me and they say, hey, training A, B, and C, and I say, okay, well, the first thing you want to think about is nutrition. Okay, the next thing you want to think about is what is your problem? What do you feel like your problem is? What do you feel like you want to achieve?
Or what your goal is? What's your target?
There's an issue. Is there something you need to overcome? Is it weight loss? Is it muscle mass gain? Is it if you want to get better at your sport? What is it that you need? What is it that you want? And then find that out, and then start gearing them towards completing a protocol for fitness that is going to ultimately lead them to their goal. But also in the initiation, I want to make sure that they are prepared mentally and emotionally to tackle that. Not only that, but do they have good balance? Do they have good functionality? That type of stuff.
So I guess the next thing I would ask you, first off, client retention. So I guess you're looking at, finding their goal is a great way to figure out what they're looking to do. Most of your clients, are they coming to you? Are they people that are in shape? Are they people that are starting from zero and they have to work their way up? Or
it's been a mix of almost everything.
How do you handle it differently?
Depending on what the goal is, some folks need a lot more reinforcement and have to get them into the mindset of, okay, this is what your goal. You have to tell them how they can achieve the goal that they're trying to achieve. Before you even start, just explain how it's going to take place, how they can see it take place in their mind, right? Make sure that they can picture it.
So you want to make sure that they can visualize their objective.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Sometimes you have to inform them of a pre-objective.
So tell them what their objective is?
No, you have to tell them what the pre-objective is, because they have an idea of what their objective is, but they may have skipped a step and not realize it.
Let me say, this is totally conversation. Have you ever had a client, I've had this, where there's a client and they have an objective, but you have another objective, where you're like, to be honest, before we get there, we're going to have to do this.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, pre-objective. So their objective is B.
Right.
And I say, well, there's actually objective A
will
help you get to B better, faster, easier, and probably a lot less frustration. Right, so example, somebody says, I want to run around the block. I say, well, how long does it take you to run around the block now? Or are you able to run around the block? They say, well, no. I say, well, what do you do right now in your attempt to achieve that objective? And they say, well, I walk.
Yeah.
I say, but now you want to run. You say, yes, okay, so what is stopping you from running? Then there's going to be a lot of other things that come up. Oh, my hip, my ankle, my balance is off,
so
my respiration is not as good as it could be, needs to be. So sometimes I need to discover that for them. Their gait could be wrong. They could be getting pain because their gait is wrong. Their technique in running is not great.
So let me just ask you something about running. I am 52 years old, love to run. I played sports my whole life. Through my 20s, I was a 5K, 10K guy. Did it on the weekends, 30, same thing. 40s, a little less, but still did. And now at 52 years old, I have hip issues where it's really painful to run. Afterwards, I'm in so much pain. Do you come across that a lot? Or how about you yourself? Are you still good for running?
Yeah, I have a missing ligament in my left knee from playing softball. I play softball almost every weekend, so I blew my ligament out, so I wear a brace.
Don't you think it would be better if you told that you lost that ligament playing football, not softball?
Well, I blew out the ligament for football the first time, and then the second was the medial collateral ligament, so now that one's gone. So I wear a brace for that. So the ACL I did have surgery on.
So do you have a lot of swelling in the knee?
No, not anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
After exercise, you don't have much swelling?
No, not anymore. Oh. I never really did, and I figured out why I was having this swelling after I had after post surgery for the ACL replacement, the graft that they did. I figured out why I was swelling up is because I didn't do what the doctor told me.
Right. Yeah. I know that problem too.
And so I learned my lesson that way, and then also realized that part of the process for overcoming the swelling was to go ahead and do the physical therapy correctly and stick to it.
Uh-huh.
Be consistent and don't give up on it, and be consistent and let the physical therapist guide you through what he's trying to do and to help you. And then what the physical therapist is trying to do is get you to 100% range of motion. That's their job. Their job is not to make you stronger.
Uh-huh.
Their job is not to get your muscles bigger and stronger. Their job is to get you to 100% range of motion as close as possible.
That's a huge point. So I know so many people, so many clients. They tell me they go to their physical therapist,
Right.
and they are given the exercise to do, and then they say like, oh, it started out, it felt really good, but then I plateaued or whatever, and I felt it was a waste of time. And then they come to a personal trainer, or then they start going, doing their own exercises. So your philosophy on that is listen to the physical therapist.
Absolutely. The physical therapist, like I mentioned, their job is to get you to 100% range of motion, or as close as possible within a certain amount of time. They have a certain amount of time. The insurance is going to cover it, and if you run out of that time, then they extend it. If the extension has run its course and you're still not 100%, you can pay out of pocket to keep going to the physical therapist. There's nothing wrong with that. However, they're going to eventually tell you, I can't get you any better than what you are. Mm-hmm. After that, you are supposed, as an injured patient or injured person that is recovering from a surgery, after visiting your physical therapist, you ought to think about seriously visiting someone like me,
personal trainer,
and who specializes in post rehab.
Yeah, I have two physical therapists that will refer business to me, mm-hmm. And the one thing that I really liked about these guys is they didn't. A lot of times, if you look on WebMD, right, they just tell you about stretching. It's like if you have plantar fasciitis, all they tell you to do is stretch. If you have this, they tell you to stretch. But they don't tell you that stretching without building up the supporting cast of muscles and getting stronger is really, the key to success in overcoming your injuries. Is that you just can't be flexible. You have to be, you have to have a range of motion, and also you have to have the strength to go forward.
Yeah, all your muscles are supposed to have a certain amount of tension.
Right.
If they're so stretched out that they can't retain tension and enough to support your body weight, then all you've done is basically reinforce the problem.
Yeah, you exacerbated what was wrong with it.
Well, you may have not exacerbated what was wrong with it, but you didn't help it.
Uh-huh.
So we want to promote strengthening and flexibility.
So there's a something I heard, and this is, guys, I don't know if this is fully true, and you can look up, there's a thing called Google now, so check it out. If I'm wrong, shoot me a message. But I had heard from a few people that with athletes that have really tight muscles end up with muscle pulls. Athletes that are very flexible end up with torn ligaments.
Yes, you know why?
Because of what you just said.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're hyper flexible, what's stretching already?
Your ligaments
and
your tendon. Oh, the muscles
are already stretched out. So what's left to stretch?
Tendon and
tendons.
Ligaments.
Right. Well, ligaments are not going to stretch. They'll
snap.
Snap. Right.
Will they stretch at all? A ligament?
A tiny bit. But they're not meant to stretch.
Uh-huh.
Ligaments are not really meant to be stretched.
Well, the tendons. This is, sorry guys if I sound like I'm a personal trainer who doesn't know what he's talking about. But you have a muscle, right, and then you have the belly of the muscle, which is like the bicep is the greatest example because it's right here, and you have like the big part. Yours is bigger than mine. The belly of the muscle, and then as you elongate, we get to the tendon, right. And then after that we get to the ligament.
Well, the ligament holds bone to bone.
Bone to bone. Okay, right. So there you go. I knew that. I actually did. I'm not that dumb. It looked better when I was too busy flexing. Yeah. So it would get, not very often. Not very often does a 52-year-old get a chance to sit like this and show their
flex
muscles.
The guns, right?
Right. So the ligament connects bone to bone.
Yeah.
The muscle is connected to the tendon, and the tendon connects the muscle to the bone.
Right.
The other thing is there much blood supply in tendons? Do you know?
Not much.
I don't think so.
There's almost none in ligaments.
But then we get tendinitis, right, which is a flare-up of the tendon.
Yeah.
So it does get swelling.
Yes.
And without
it's usually fluid. It's not always blood.
Okay.
It's just synovial fluid or like.
Synovial fluid. Yeah.
Right. So I could be wrong on the synovial fluid.
Yeah.
I think it's synovial fluid.
It's a type of fluid. I know.
I think it's synovial fluid. But so what happens is the tendon can snap because the muscle's so stretched out. There's no more stretch left in the muscle on a explosive maneuver.
Right.
Right. So then the tendon can fray or tear to a certain degree.
Well, right? I remember reading an article in the last, in the last 10 years. I want to say it was like just last year, but it's probably over 5 years ago. There's a few articles that with sports scientists trying to figure out whether stretching was beneficial or detrimental to the athlete.
I think what you're referring to is before or after exercise.
Yeah, exactly. They were talking about before.
They're talking about the static stretching.
Yeah,
So
it was all static stretching. Is what
they're
I
talking
think
about
they
static
based off.
stretching, right?
Yeah.
Well, my philosophy is, and based on experience, I might be different than I am different than everybody else, of course. But my experience and being weekend warrior athlete every weekend for the last 20 years, I always do active stretch before and static stretch after. I don't really.
When you were in the Army, did you wake up with like a stretching routine or some sort of warm up?
In the Army, we did calisthenics in the morning,
Right.
and then ran 5 miles or 10 miles, or whatever the CO wanted us to do that day, and then we would go eat breakfast.
I'm sorry.
That was at 6 a.m.
I've started to develop a clientele with people that are doing half-hour sessions with me in the morning, and we're doing half-hour calisthenics. And it's for people, of an older demographic, 15 above. Usually, dealing with a woman that was a former rugby player, another equestrian, and they, had tendonitis that is now turning into arthritis, and they're having shoulder issues and things like that. I mean, it almost seems like the way you started off in the military, you did your calisthenics and then went to breakfast, is probably the healthiest way we all should probably do things.
Well, it was beneficial for me because I really took it seriously, and not only that, I applied myself 110%. I was kind of one of these gung ho guys, so I really took it very, very seriously. So I was all in, and I was just this fitness little twerp. I'm a little bit bigger now. I'm a little bit bigger. No, back in the Army, I was 155 going into the.
How much do you weigh now?
235.
You were 230. Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, your legs have got to be huge.
Well, I have big bones, I think, or heavy bones.
Heavy bones.
I'm pretty dense.
What do you like to let them sit in water overnight so they soak up and get heavier?
I know. I ask guys, they're 6 foot so, and they say, I ask them, how much do you bench? And I ask them, how much do you weigh? And they ask me, and I was like, 235. And I don't want to broadcast it too much because, when they come up and hit me on the football field or the softball, if they come up and collide with me, I don't want to intimidate people, so I don't walk around jacking and flexing, and I don't do all of that, So I try to keep a low profile. I don't really talk about my weight.
You're a very subtle big guy.
No, I'm only 5'10".
5'10", 235. You put like what? That's Earl Campbell.
No, not quite. But
you have to measure your thighs after this whole thing. Robert Newhouse, Saquon Barkley, look out! Here he comes.
So, to get back to the Army, the secret to staying in shape in the military, in my opinion, was weight training in the afternoon. So morning was calisthenics, grass drills. A lot of grass drills for about 30 minutes, and calisthenics, which is push-ups, sit-ups, grass drills, little crawling, all this stuff, right? Like infantry training, right?
Right.
But a little less intense. And then go eat breakfast after your 5 to 10 mile run. Then come back in the afternoon at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, go work out with the weights in the gym. Hit the gym for an hour and a half, then go eat a nice supper with plenty of protein.
So you're getting 3 workouts in essentially. Calisthenics, cardio, and then strength.
Well, cardio was a workout, but for me, I grew up running since I was in 4th grade, so to me it wasn't a workout, it was just like a walk in a park type thing. But I was like I said, I was a fitness twerp.
You're like one of those Kenyans that like that.
I wasn't fast. I could run forever though.
I did a Shelter Island 10K one year, and it was I'm not a morning person, so it was an afternoon run. It was around 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And whatever, I had a whole day. We went to the beach, we did this, and whatever. I guess I had enough caffeine, and we went to go to the race, and it was a 5 p.m. start time. And I did a little adrenaline, and I decided, I'm like, guys, I'm gonna kind of ease my way up to the front. I want to get a record time. I want to do really well. And as I got to the front, I was like, wow, they're letting me go all the way to the front. So I'm looking at it, I was like, wow, I'm like, all right, I'll go race with these guys. And I'm with like all the professionals, and they're running. Right. So, they start running, they take off, and I'm just like a typical, just like a puppy. I'm just following everybody else. I run my first mile. It was a 5 minutes and 12 seconds, which was the fastest mile I had ever run in my life.
That's nice.
My second mile, it was 5 minutes and 44 seconds.
Wow.
Second fastest mile in my life. After that, it was like 8+ the whole way through.
Yeah.
My quads locked up. My biceps and forearms were like all locked up and stuck. I got done with the race, and my girlfriend at the time was like, they had hamburgers and beer, and it's like, would you want a beer and a hot dog? I'm like, honestly, we might have to go to the hospital. We might have to hold
I can
off.
understand why.
Yeah. So, I also, this is interesting. I'm working a little bit with a woman who trains at the Pentagon, which we'll have to talk about that at another time.
All right.
Because what she did when you were in the military, was this after they brought in like outside fitness like instructors?
No.
So this woman, what she started off with was training Marines down like in South Carolina. Is that Parris Island in South Carolina?
I think so. I'm not,
I'm
not sure about that one.
So, and what she said, what was happening was in the military, a lot of guys were getting hurt through their training. So they brought in these outside fitness professionals, and this woman was an aerobics instructor. She had a degree in biology too, and like marine biology, so a real smart person. But she decided instead of being a scientist, she was going to be an aerobics instructor. And then it went from there and segued to then she trains people in the Pentagon now.
Nice. So well, just to kind of expand on that, when I was in the military, a lot like I said, I grew up running long distance track. When I was in 4th grade, I started running long distance.
So you're a cross country guy.
Yeah, I mean that was my shtick. I was a good runner, but I wasn't fast. So I was a long distance
guy.
Cross country.
Right.
That was my thing, and I continued to do that all through junior high. In high school, I didn't run track. I was too busy messing around, so I didn't run track. But I always kept that ability, right? And so I didn't compete for the school. So after high school, I went directly into the military. So I still had that endurance ability. It took me maybe 2 weeks to get back into it.
Right.
17 years old. I was 17 years old in the military. So
you snap back. The elasticity of your body at that.
Well, the respiratory conditioning came right back. It took me 2 weeks or less.
Interesting thing that I love talking. If you've had a personal trainer, there's a thing we call fast twitch muscle fiber and slow twitch muscle fiber. Fast twitch is why Michael Jordan was much better at 23 years old than he is at 43 years old, and it's something that atrophies a lot faster. Fast twitch is obviously it's a faster twitching muscle or faster activating muscle. Slow twitch is a little slower. Weightlifting for the most part is a slow twitch exercise. I'm sure when we get to doing snatches and stuff like that, it becomes fast twitch.
It's a power move. Yeah.
So you obviously you have a lot of muscle mass on your body. You had a history of being very good at slow twitch muscle activities.
Well,
you think there's any type of relation between the two?
Between the two,
being a distance runner, right? You're using slow twitch muscle fiber.
yeah.
And weightlifting is, for the most part, I believe it's slow twitch muscle fiber.
It depends on what you're doing.
Type of activity. Yeah.
And what your rep count is. I mean, what your tempo is, all that stuff. So you're activating that.
True. It can be both.
Yeah, it can be both. So it's kind of funny going to the running again. I developed a technique in running that incorporated the power aspect of running in the long distance running. And how I did that was I pictured in my mind myself as a gazelle. Gazelles don't run, they bound.
They bound.
They bound, right? So what I would do is I would leap into the next stride and roll.
However, you can't get altitude, right? Because then you're spending too much time in the air. You have to you have to project forward.
Yeah, so I would literally bound forward.
I remember we took, when I was in college, we used to have these running coaches that would come in every spring, and they would film how you run, and then they would tell you that you were just a spaz. Like everything you did was wrong. Like your heel's going in, this toe's going out, your arms are going out. But the biggest thing that I took away from them is they said, with sprinting speed, the most important thing is keeping the back leg on the ground as long as possible because you're powering off of that.
Yeah.
And they said the front leg is almost like a limp. It should be limp, and once it hits the ground, then it snaps in and projects, it pushes you forward.
I did the same thing with long distance running.
Mm-hmm.
I adopted that concept. But again, you have to remember I was in 4th grade, so I didn't really know what I was doing, and nobody was really coaching. The coach was there, but he's the principal of the school. He's not a track coach, right? So I just came up with these things on my own, and I call them gears with my breathing tempo. I call them gears. So I developed all this stuff like on my own. So when I got into the Army, I incorporated all that, and I was successful at that. And then incorporate the weight training, which in the military, before you even step into a gym, you have to go through a class. You have to go through a certain protocol to even step into the gym, because there's no trainers. So they say, okay, if you want to use the gym, you need to take this class, which will last 2 to 3 weeks, and they teach you how to use the machines correctly and teach you some basics on free weight, but not a lot. So you're kind of like, okay, so you take the class for the machine usage, right? And that is what kind of started me on the path of weightlifting, weight training, and applying that to my training for the military, as far as running, doing all that grass drill stuff. So that stuff in the morning was kind of a warm-up for me. And then when it came time to go to the gym, that's when I really hit it. And then and I just kept that going all through after the Army. I kept going through college, hit the gym, and then.
What were the grass drills? I know that
we're talking like low crawling, military-oriented things.
So I'm actually
push-ups, sit-ups.
I'm trying to steal exercises from him right now.
So
without a doubt. This is for me at this point, Trey. Give me some grass drills. Help me out.
So one would be I place my feet on your shoulders, and I'm doing push-ups while you're doing the same thing on someone else.
Okay. So you're creating that chain.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be one.
Okay. And how many push-ups would you do? I hope it's not more than 10.
No, a lot.
At a time?
Sure. You'd usually do 20 at least.
So sets of 20.
Yeah, but guys would fall out.
So what happens? Is there a penalty for falling out, or is it that everybody's got to just finish?
The only penalty I ever got in the military was when the drill sergeant came to kick me in the head because I was firing the M60 continuously.
The M60, that's a stoner, right? Is that what they call it? That can they use that.
The M60 machine gun.
Yeah, I remember reading a book about Navy SEALs in Vietnam, and the guy talked about the M60, and he said that it would knock down trees that had like a 6-inch diameter,
it does a lot of damage. It can.
It's
supposed to use for suppression fire, so.
Really? That's what it's used for?
Yeah, you're not really trying to. I mean,
it's to keep people's heads down, so your
right.
troops can advance.
Right. Or giving them cover.
Really? Yeah. You're not trying to hit anybody with that, huh?
Well, probably not. That thing is moving. Now, I was one of the stronger guys in my platoon, so
Can you hold it on your own, or does it have to be mounted?
Oh yeah. Well, I could. And most people can.
It's water cooled or something? Actually,
guys,
I'm sorry if this sounds a little bit different, but I'm really interested in this. And
it's gas.
It's gas,
It's gas operated. It's not.
So I read these books about the military, right? And there's certain things that I read, and I'm like, I'm like, all right, I got to get to the next, but I don't know what it means. Like when you're saying right now, it's gas propelled or gas operated.
The slide is gas operated.
Like gasoline?
Petrol? No. When the round is fired, the slide. When the round is fired,
the gas that fills and
the projectile goes out the barrel.
Right.
Then the gas comes. The gas from the firing of the projectile goes through a tube and that gas comes back and forces the slide back to fire another round.
So when you're doing gas, it's like a methane gas type.
No, not methane.
I know it's not
from
methane.
The round that you fire.
Right. It's a gas as in gaseous. It's not like a gasoline. It's not a liquid or anything.
No.
Because I was wondering when I read in these books, like, that sounds terrible. This gasoline, I wouldn't want to be. God forbid,
it's just
a fire.
It's just they using the projectile's remains of being being fired to get the slide to come back again.
So it's like pneumatic gas in a way. I know what I'm saying, even though that might be the wrong word. Yeah. Like in my mind, I'm pretty comfortable with what my comprehension is. I don't know about if everybody else caught that, but if you're interested, just leave us a message and we'll get back to. But that's you're the first person I know that's ever shot one of those guns. So
okay.
Yeah. But I've read about them plenty of times.
Yeah,
in this one book, they just talked about them constantly.
Yeah. So to kind of go back to the whole, it does a lot of damage. Can do a lot of damage, but it's not meant to. You're not target practicing with it, except in a 6-round burst. So you're supposed to use a 6-round burst because the weapon can't overheat.
That's
when the drill sergeant came to kick me in the head, this is in basic. The reason why he kicked me in the head is because he didn't want the barrel to overheat, because when it does that, it jams up. Well, I'm a 17-year-old kid,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I'm going Rambo. I just went down there. I just kept firing down there. I was like,
You have when you're at that, like, I'm totally novice. I've never been in the military. I've only fired machine guns once at a bachelor party in Las Vegas. I shot a shotgun once in my life.
Okay.
We used to have BB gun wars when we were in junior high, growing
Nice.
up out in the woods, out in the east end of Long Island. But you know that's the extent of like.
Okay.
So I don't even like. You know, so this is a whole new world that's interesting to me, but probably not about fitness. But
Well, you do have to be strong to carry that sucker.
how much is it weigh?
Ah, man, I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but I would say something like 25 to 30, 25 pounds maybe.
That's a lot to carry around.
Maybe
Damn.
25 pounds. It's kind of hard to remember.
Really?
I mean, we could look it up and find
Yeah,
out.
I'll look it up. This.
But yeah, they gave it to me. I think the reason why they gave it to me is because somebody hated me and wanted me to die first. That's usually the guy that gets taken out.
Oh
first.
yeah,
the
because
guy
that's
with
the guy that's
suppressing fire.
we can't go forward unless
So
we
they're
get rid
like,
of that
yeah,
guy.
let's give it to Trey Fannin. Give it to him. Put him on the cab, and then and he'll get shot first.
Are you ever in the when you were in the military? Did you ever get that feeling? It's like, you know what? That they're gonna put that guy up for like nobody likes him. He's gonna go.
Well, actually, I kind of liked carrying it because I felt
You're integral to the whole thing.
Yeah, I felt empowered carrying
Right,
it. So
yeah.
it was like I'm the one guy in this platoon that can carry this because I'm weight training, and none of the guys, most of them are doing 12-ounce weight training, right? So I'm in the gym, and so when they said, Specialist Fanny, you're getting the M60, I'm like, cool. So it didn't bother me, and back then I didn't really think about being the magnet. I was in my combat tour. I didn't
You're
really
young.
think
You
about
want
it.
to be top of the.
Yeah,
you
you were like, yeah, I'm the guy.
That's why I wouldn't join the military because I know that at the end of the day, my ego would want me to be the best in the class, and I'd be like the first
Yeah, I
one
took
to
it
say,
as a badge of honor.
like,
But-
dude, you know what? You're awesome. You're fast. You're strong. You'll be pointed. Actually, the point man, it's like, yeah, we're gonna put you right in the heat of battle.
It wasn't
And the
until
thing
later.
is, I'd be like, I'll go, sir.
Yeah, it
until
wasn't
I
until-
realize I'm
yeah.
there. I'm like, why the
It
hell?
wasn't until later I realized somebody must have hated me. Because then you're like, you wise up a little bit later, and you're like, okay.
Let's see some other questions. Key ingredients. We're definitely going off and just talking a little bit here. At 50 years old, how have your workouts changed?
Dramatically.
This is real. I think this is the most important thing right now is how everything in fitness is for that either the kid trying to make the starting lineup, the 20-year-old that's trying to get the body that looks like a Greek god, or there's a 30-something-year-old that's trying to tell themselves they're not over the hill and trying to keep up with the guy who's trying to keep the Greek god. And then what happens, with me at least, is in my 40s I started getting injured. And I kept on trying to do the workouts that I did as a young guy, and that just basically propelled me into my old guy body faster. So tell us about how your workouts have changed.
So what I just became smarter. I worked out smarter.
Yeah, I didn't do that. That wasn't I wanted. I stayed dumb as
Well,
hell.
I recognized my deficiencies, and then I tried to make them my strengths. And then, so what my deficiencies were balance and
Flexibility.
not flexibility. I would say
Range of motion?
versatility in workout concepts.
Okay, so you're
So
a meat
I
and potatoes
improved-
workout guy in the beginning. Like
Yeah,
bench press,
like if you were
pull-up?
to put me on a scale of knowledge, when I was younger in the military, they gave you this class.
Mhm.
So I based everything that I knew about fitness on that class. So how to use these machines, what are they for? What is the objective of using these machines? Which were just these, pneumatic machines,
Right.
cable-driven machines, band-driven machines, right? Free weights were not a huge part of it, but I learned so much during those workouts because I spent almost 6 years doing them.
Right.
I learned my body so well, and I was running, and I played softball in the Army too. So I was putting all that together, trying to come up with the perfect formula to be a better soldier and perform at a high level at my PT test, which I did end up becoming, maxing out my push-ups, maxing out my sit-ups, and my run was the fastest I could possibly do. It was 2 miles at 11:55. That was my fastest 2 miles.
That's
Not
not
bad.
bad.
It's not the greatest.
It's still
But it- but
sub
I
6
can
minute
run.
miles, two back to back.
Yeah, so I could
So-
do it, right? And that's
Yeah.
what my objective was. My objective was to be the best in PT shape guy in the company. That was my goal, and I eventually got there. But I had to be smart about that even, and apply all that I learned in those classes that they give you to step foot into the gym. So once I completed those and started on that journey of just get stronger so I can do better count on my push-ups, get stronger so I can do better count on my sit-ups, and that was the test: sit-ups, push-ups, and 2-mile run. That was all the test it was. Now it's they have obstacle courses and they have different things, so it's a lot different now.
So how old were you when you got out of the military?
24.
So you did 6 years from 18.
Or almost 24. It was 20, almost 24.
We'll say it's 18 to 24. It's at that age.
Yeah. So I got out 17. I was in 17. 17. I had my 18th birthday in August. In basic training. So almost 18. So it's almost 6 years.
Right.
So after 24 years old, I just applied all that I knew in the gym that I learned from the Army.
Did you start training right after the military?
Yeah, I continued training.
No, I did as a personal trainer.
Oh no,
You start,
I didn't start personal training until I left college or finished college and then came to New York.
Yeah, I started personal training kind of late. I started after a very non-stellar career in finance, which a rather pedestrian career in finance. I decided I wanted to do things that I enjoyed, and I never felt, this is a weird thing, I never felt comfortable in an office. I never felt comfortable wearing a suit. I never felt comfortable wearing shoes that weren't sneakers, and it just wasn't me in that environment. I felt very, felt timid in a corporate environment. But hell, if you bring me here in a gym and I'll yell across the room and tell you, what I had for dinner, or if I'm regular or if I'm irregular or whatever. I feel very comfortable in this type of environment.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm talking about where I feel comfortable, but that's.
Well, your question was.
Was.
What was the question? We got off.
We definitely got off. The question was, what I know was how our exercises and how our workouts have changed.
Okay, so in the military,
You have to get out of here in about 10 minutes. Is that no?
I have a client at 3:30.
Okay, 2 o'clock now.
3, or I can't remember. Anyway, we got plenty of time.
Yeah.
So after the military, I kind of traveled around Midwest, and then got a job in Kansas, and then traveled around Oklahoma and Texas and Kansas. I was an oil guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was working for a company called Western Geophysical. But they changed to Western Atlas after that. But they were a company looking for natural gas and oil underground, subterranean.
Yeah.
So I was working on that crew for 6 months, and I got fired. I created a lake on a farmer's field on accident. I ran over a 12-inch irrigation pipe on accident. The farmer's field was flooded, or the farmer's road was flooded, and I fishtailed and ran over his pipe. So the boss came out it was a rice field, and he said, "You're fired, right?" I was like, "Yes, sir, I know. I'm sorry, sir." He's like, "Okay, well, just go on up to the headquarters office, which is 5-6 miles away, and report to the general manager." So I did, and I got fired. But anyway, long story short, I found a job in Kansas after that, and a meat processing plant. And from that point on, I started my training in the YMCA, local YMCA, and I just continued on training how I had trained in the Army, and it was efficient and beneficial and goal oriented. Just get stronger. And then I went to college and became interested in martial arts and dance. And
dance is one of the greatest things to add into a workout. And if you can find a personal trainer who has some background in dance, it's definitely huge. It's a big advantage.
Beneficial
for the trainer and for the client.
Yeah, because I base a lot of my philosophy doctrine on training on dance. I took ballet, took modern jazz.
I've taken ballet and modern dance.
Right, and I took martial arts there. So that helped me understand. And the funny thing is, martial arts and ballet are very, very similar.
Well, pirouette, right? A pirouette on a dance.
Well, I'm not talking about the pirouette. I'm talking about just the balance aspect.
Okay, I was just thinking about the spinning, right? I mean, if you're going to spin and pivoting and pirouetting, probably are they that much different?
I was terrible at pirouetting. It took me a long time to get better at that. Can you imagine me?
Guys, if you want to learn about pirouetting, not the guy, not a pirouette guy, but you know what? He can hold an M60, I think that's more impressive.
I actually got good at doing a pirouette. It took me a year and a half.
I remember from wrestling practice, they always would say he would do this, these moves, and they would call it a pirouette, and for whatever. I don't know if they're really.
It just means turn around.
Exactly. Yes. On
around,
one leg, right?
Do a 360.
Yeah.
Point your weapon that way. But yeah. So dance was a huge aspect of my training regimen, increasing my knowledge base, increasing in martial arts. Expanded that as well, and then performing arts, being on stage, and
So you're a performer too?
That's why I came to New York, is to act.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're still an actor now?
No. I realized when I got here after about 30 minutes that I suck. so I had a double major. I was a lighting major for theater as well. So when I came to New York, I realized I suck at acting. So I said, well, I know how to do lights really well, and I really love doing lighting for theater. So I just segued into that 100%, and I did a lot of work. I was doing great work and enjoyed it, loved it. And
lighting is huge. Lighting is
it's amazing, and it's a lot of fun.
And lighting is why we're doing this video, guys. By the way, if it weren't for Trey, well, I'd be in a closet in shadows with somebody else, and you would never see this video.
Not that this lighting is perfect, but it's not bad.
It's not perfect, but yeah, at least we can see each other.
Yeah. So when I came to New York, I was believe it or not, I came with the clothes on my back, and I drove my car from Kansas, and I had clothes on my back, and that was it. So
hey, anytime someone comes from Kansas to New York, it's a story. It's like it says. I remember there used to be a T-shirt. There was like a handgun. It's New York, honey, not Kansas, or something like. So, but you always love a story that starts in Kansas and ends up in New York.
So I came to New York, and I actually joined after college. Came to New York to join the neighborhood playhouse.
Which were the one like over here?
Yeah.
One? Yeah. I've seen that.
So I enrolled there for the summer of.
That's on 55th Street. We're at we're 48th and Park right now.
So I enrolled there for the summer of 2000, and while I was there, the librarian took a shine to me. He was a really nice guy. His name is David Simonin. Really awesome dude, and he was always on the lookout for me. He said, "Hey, I know you don't have any income right now." I'd saved some money, so I was, using that. But I kind of let him know that I was looking for work. He said, "Would you be willing to go clean apartments for, $10 an hour?" I was like, "Absolutely." And I grew up in a janitorial service. With my parents had a janitorial service when I was growing up. So I know how to clean a house.
So
I know how to clean a brand new house. I know how to clean apartments.
Also, being in the military is like cleaning. Because I mean, the military is
cleaning everything.
My dad was a New York City fireman, and I just remember he had a certain type of order. My dad was not a neat person, but things had to be certain, like in a certain order.
Yes.
And I just walked by a New York City fire truck, and I'm like looking in, I'm like, that's
make sure the hose is folded.
Yeah, like everything has to have its purpose, and I know the military is just like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even more, you like 10 times 100.
Yeah.
So you got to fold your socks, and they have to be at least 4 inches. You have to be perfectly 4 inches. Your t-shirts have to be perfectly 6 inches wide, rolled. All that underwear is about 3 inches wide. It's ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah. It's like down to.
Did anyone ever go, "Why the hell are we doing this?"
No.
Like,
nobody's that.
Jimmy, keep your mouth shut.
Nobody's that suicidal.
I want 5 inches. Come on.
Yeah, you seen movies where the guys are bouncing the quarter off the head?
Yeah.
That shit's real. The drill sergeants would come and do that, and if it
How
wasn't
old are the
right,
drill sergeants, by the way?
Oh, they range from. We had one young guy. This guy was he had a Napoleonic complex.
Right.
He was probably 25.
Because there's a big when you're 18.
And then I had guys that were 60.
I said, but there's when you're 18, 24 is you're that's an old man. It's like right, like the age is big. Like you're a freshman in college. A senior is like someone who's that's a man. I'm still turning into from just.
Well, you got a drill sergeant that's got a round brown on.
Yeah, big
and
hat.
that thing's in your nose, and you're not going to be like, what? No, you'll be like, do what he says. And this guy would kick you.
I was always wondering what would ever happen in the military if someone didn't listen to the drill sergeant.
They let you know that you didn't listen to them, and they let you know that they know that you didn't listen to them, and they back in my day.
Right.
Back in my day it was very reprimand oriented.
Well, I mean, they didn't just send you home, right? You get court-martialed, right? Or
no. I mean, I'm talking about minor infractions. You're talking about something that's would be.
Well, I mean, just
that'd be an Article 15 violation.
to get court-martial. Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to get an Article 15.
But is there ever any guy that says, this is the reason I'm asking. I have a client of mine who got drafted during the Vietnam War era. And he didn't want to go to war, and he's like, I had a nice business, and he's like, I was a pacifist. And during boot camp, he took his gun and he threw it at his sergeant.
Wow.
And
he was really angry about something.
He just said, he goes, and the guy went to come after him and started yelling, and he said, you can't do that to me. And he just kept like he just didn't care.
So he's a conscientious objector.
Yeah, they threw him out.
Yeah.
Like he got out and he got out the way he wanted. You know, he's like, I wasn't looking for any awards or anything. He's like, I had a family business. I want to get back. Like, yeah, I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not giving him thumbs up for his behavior. I'm just
well, honestly, there's
that,
nothing wrong with being a conscientious objector.
I'm just amazed that it worked for him.
Well, yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. I never ran into a conscientious objector, but I did run into people that were medical.
Right.
Expelled.
Medical, yeah.
Right, and what they do is they'll try to beat you into some semblance of fitness and uniformity, and try to shape you into a soldier. But if your heart's not in it, they're gonna be like, okay, we can see this guy's his heart's not in it.
Son,
let's rethink this, and they're not gonna browbeat you physically.
Unless it's a wartime, right? In wartime, it's different.
During my combat tour, I never saw anything like that because everybody was on one sheet of music.
You were in
Somalia.
Ah, really?
Yeah. So during my tour there, and I only had one combat tour. That was it, and then I got out.
I would love to find out more about that, but I know that I don't know if everybody else wants to know about what's going on.
Well, maybe another day. But so I never saw anything like what you're talking about. So just to kind of expand on the military a little bit more, and then put a nail in the coffin on that, was everybody was on the same sheet of music, which was get back home.
Right.
And that.
How long were you in Somalia?
Almost 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like there? What's the temperature?
It was really hot. Well, okay. So in Mogadishu, I was in Mogadishu.
Uh-huh.
In Mogadishu, it's the capital of Somalia, and it is 5 miles inland from the seaport. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so the seaport, you get a great breeze, right? Nice and cool. And we were there during the monsoon season, which was from September. It goes from September to.
Yeah, it's like our
December.
hurricane season.
Yeah, but the storms weren't really bad.
Uh-huh.
But there is a cooling.
After the storms.
I'm talking about during the whole monsoon season.
Mhm.
You get these offshore breezes almost constantly. So if you're near the seaport, pretty good. When you go inland 5 miles, it's a little bit different, but it's still there. So we never were like pounded with heat.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest, the most obvious environmental anomaly that we experienced would have been the smell.
Yeah. I've heard that
The smell was the whole city was, destroyed because of the Civil War. So they had no sewage. So the reason why the smell was so bad is because the human excrement was everywhere.
I've been in old cities in Europe, like on the Mediterranean in July and in August, and like they have the sewers are just they run along. Yeah. And so
Well, imagine not having any sewer.
Yeah, we're kind of lucky in America that we're a new enough country that we realize we have these things called copper and PVC piping.
Not only that, but we exercise hygiene and
hygiene
all that.
important.
So
And I believe in those areas of the world they talk about like how many people don't have like vertical. I forget what's called vertical plumbing or vertical something. There's a thing they call with when you have a proper functioning toilet.
Right. So the first thing I did when I got back from Somalia was flush all the toilets in my living. I'm not kidding.
You're like, I became a plumber after I worked for I worked for the crane toilet.
I learned to appreciate America and all its benefits.
Yeah, we do take we're I think one of the things about America is that we forget that we have the privilege here to complain, and that our
it's
lives.
Really nice benefit, doesn't it?
Well, no matter how much I'm going to complain about whatever I
There's
have to
somebody that has it
complain
all.
about, there's
Worse-
someone else
worse
that
off.
has a lot worse. And
Yeah.
you know, I know that people that whatever different personality, different views of what's been going on in the last few years. But as I was talking to some lawyer, and he said, you know, you might not like the law in New York, but he's like, it's not going to be any better, you know, in most places in the world. I don't know where there's a country where there's free spirits and living. But that's really cool because it is Veterans Day.
Yeah,
you
you're
want
right.
it? I wouldn't mind. Like, you got any more to tell us about Somalia? I mean, that's the veteran experience.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Like, what did you?
Ask me a question if you.
Most exciting moment, funnest moment, worst
Oh,
moment,
okay.
most exciting moment,
Okay.
and then the boredom. If there's a boredom issue,
There was never any boredom.
never bored.
Never bored. Because we created our own entertainment. So
Uh-huh.
for entertainment, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she let me steal her brother's Game Boy. Before
This is over. So my girlfriend's brother's Game Boy.
So I had that with me.
Uh-huh.
So I played Game Boy like crazy when I had nothing to do. But other than that, I was reading. I was reading constantly.
What did you? Fiction, non-fiction reader.
Right now, I read nothing but nonfiction.
I'm a
I
fiction
read,
guy.
Yeah, I was reading a lot of. What was I reading back then?
Tom Clancy. That's what I was reading.
Yeah, I was reading Tom Clancy. I was reading.
Ken Follett, Tom Clancy,
Yeah,
my big
yeah.
ones in the '90s.
Yeah, I would read. Man, I read so much that I can't remember all the stuff that
I've
read,
definitely
but
forgotten more books that
I would read a
than
book and
that.
put another one down and grab another one. I was
Yeah.
constantly reading.
It's great
So-
when you read. I mean, it's
Yeah, I'm a big reader. I'm a
Yeah.
huge reader. I read voraciously from the age of. I discovered the magic of books in.
You ever
sixth
read
grade.
Bernard Cornwell? He's a British writer. He's got a whole series. It's always historical fiction, and one of the greatest ones is about a guy that was conscripted into the British military when they were in occupied India.
Okay.
And the guy was just, you know, he was like an urchin living on the streets, and it's all historical fiction. But he climbs his way up the ranks, but he just talks. I think it's one of the greatest books. I was not in the military, but the way this guy describes life as a redcoat, it seems like that's probably the way it really was. Like
Right.
it wasn't.
So you put a lot of research into it.
Yeah, he does a lot because it became a whole series called
Yeah, I don't think
Sharp's Colonel Sharp. It's very.
I
I
don't
don't know.
think I've read him.
Yeah, there's
But
no-
now I read a lot of autobiographies.
Uh-huh.
Autobiographies. So I
I
get a
just
lot
finished
of
Grant's.
inspiration
I
from it.
actually just finished Grant's memoirs.
Okay.
Not the. By mistake, I picked up the memoirs instead of the biography that was a bestseller, and then I got like about 70% through, and then I decided to watch the documentary and catch up on it. But
Right.
yeah. So let's get back to your time. Yeah, Veterans
Okay.
Day.
So the most exciting. Most exciting. Exciting can be.
Exciting is all different types of things.
Exciting can mean different things for different people. So exciting wouldn't be like exciting could be used to describe dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. So for exciting for me is something happy and
Right.
joyous.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's exciting for me. That's what exciting means.
So
to me.
did you find
So-
any of that there?
When I was playing volleyball, we play sand volleyball
And that's
almost every day, and that was my most enjoyment. The most enjoyment I would get almost every day is a great stress reliever, and I would search out a game almost every night after dinner, and that was something I really looked forward to every day. You know, being shirtless, and, you know,
Right.
it's kind of like a top.
It's
top
just like
gun.
the top
It's not-
gun, yeah.
it's just like that,
Yeah.
but no flexing. So then that would be like I really enjoyed that. Dangerous would be, well, let's go with stupid.
All right. I
So
love stupid.
I had a friend of mine. We were buddies, and we hung out together all the time, and you know we watched each other's back all the time. His name is Kevin Smith, and we were just like we had each other's back all the time. But we decided one night, we were so sick and tired of the rations. You know, it was good. It was good. But after 5 months of eating the same stuff,
Yeah.
it was like Jesus
I love
Christ.
pizza, but there's only so much I can
Right,
about
so the chefs were doing the best they can with what we had, right? The cooking people, I don't know if you call them chefs, but
No,
that's what I call them.
mess.
So yeah, mess sergeant, mess people. So so what we did was we did something really stupid, and we could have really been, we would have been in huge trouble. Probably would have been.
International
We would've been
trouble?
the break.
Like, you would cause an international
It
disaster?
could have
or-
been, yeah. Because what we did was we decided we were going to go outside the wire of our perimeter
Uh-huh,
and leave our weapons in the brush inside the wire.
uh-huh.
Go outside the wire, crawl under the wire, and our wire was just barbed wire.
Right, yeah.
Right. So crawled under the wire, snuck out in the middle of the night because we were desperate to get some other food and some.
You thought you were going to find a 7-Eleven or a Pizza Hut?
No, no, no.
You thought you could find
We knew where we were
original.
going.
It was
We-
original Ray's is on the other side of the razor wire.
We knew where we were going.
Ray's original.
We went to this guy. He was a guy that had a little bit of a meat shack.
Like a kebab stand? or
Yeah,
something like
kebab
that?
stand.
Yeah.
Not a real kebab stand
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
see
yeah.
in New York, but it was like a little shack.
Right, yeah, that,
And
I've
we
been like
snuck
the
in there.
Philippines like that, I've seen that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we snuck in there, and we decided to try to dress as not go in uniform as much as possible. We put our PT uniforms on, so we didn't
The
look
PT,
like
what do they look like?
there were sweatpants, sweatshirt,
Oh,
t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't. I think it may even said Army on it, but it wasn't like battle fatigue, battle dress. It wasn't the battle dress uniform. It wasn't what we had back then was the chocolate chips,
Right.
the tan with the black and the white chocolate chip design.
So
That
so
was
far
what we
this sounds incredibly like not like the smartest idea to do, right? To me.
So we got there and we got our meat.
And how old
right?
are you right now at this time when you're doing that?
22.
Excellent. That's a perfect age to do things like
so
this.
So we said, well, let's get some booze too. So we got like tequila.
Do they even have booze, or do you
had
do that on base? The booze or off
no,
base?
off.
Ah, I
We
thought
didn't have
Somali
booze
was
on
a dry. I
base.
thought Somali was a dry country.
Well, they would black
Yeah,
market,
right.
right? So, so we got some like vodka. I don't think it was tequila. We got vodka, but I don't know where this guy got it, right? But we knew we had it. So we went out and we got under the wire. Went under the wire. Left our weapons in the brush, and because we didn't want to go outside the wire, because if you get caught outside the wire with your weapon, someone could take your weapon, and not only did you lose your weapon, now you are. So, and the shack was not that far away.
Right. It's almost
So,
like you're taking your weapon outside of the perimeter. So what?
Well, we don't want to take it
yeah,
outside the perimeter, because if we get caught outside the perimeter with
the
our weapon, it could be an international incident.
It could be interpreted as an aggressive event. I
Right.
guess. Yeah.
So we're like, what's the smartest way to go about this? And it's only going to take us 5 minutes to get this food, right? So we go out, we get the food, we come back, and we're like scarfing, and we're like, patting each other on the back. Well done. And then you think about it later, you're like, Jesus, that could have been.
Yeah, the
That could've been
PTSD that
really
you
bad.
have from that, like.
No, I don't have a PTSD from
Well,
that.
I shouldn't use PTSD. I use PTSD lightly, and I shouldn't be using that when
Yeah.
we're talking about something with a veteran because, I when I was younger, I remember one. Geez, why am I telling you guys this? But it's an interesting. I lived out in the Hamptons in the winter time, and one winter, like we'd go out. And this is stupid. We'd drink on a Saturday night, and then we'd get up early on a Sunday morning, and we'd still be a little buzzed or something from the night. And I remember one day there was snow on the ground, and we all decided to take our motorcycles out. And we were motorcycle riding in the snow with kind of hungover, maybe not with all of our full faculties. And I look back on that, I'm like, damn, that was really dumb.
Yeah, when you're wiser and older, you figure out the dumb things you did, stupid things you did, and you realize how close you could have come to disaster.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of age. And
Yeah, that's an
a little
age
bit more
when
wisdom.
young people don't realize that there is. I've learned a lot of things that you learn from your mistakes in life.
Yeah,
That's why I am so smart.
If you're lucky enough to have learned them later in life, you realize how fortunate you were to.
I've made
encounter disaster.
mental level intelligence due to all my my wrongdoings and mistakes I've made.
That's okay. That's called life experience.
Did you guys did you get in into battle at all when you were there, or in regard to?
We were constantly under fire.
Really?
Yeah, because they would mortar us,
Uh-huh.
and then they would walk it in, and
So the mortar's stepping in closer and
then they
closer.
walk it in, just, trying to hit you.
What is the circumference of damage from a mortar? I always remember just reading a book of.
Depends on what they hit.
Right.
So, for example, I'll give you an example. I was a communications operator, so my rig was in the Mogadishu University compound, which it was the Mogadishu University, and they expanded on that. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a photo or a bird's eye view of the Mogadishu University. but it's circular shaped, and then there's rings, and all the buildings are shaped into, they're formed into rings.
Right.
So and then in the middle was headquarters, and that was like the principal's office, right? But we turned that into our headquarters. But the university grounds were huge, and then we expanded upon that, right? So my communications rig was outside the walled area of the university, but inside the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So one day we were mortared, and to answer your question about the damage radius of the round, depends on what they hit. So a mortar round, I think its radius for inflicting a mortality is like 30 to 50 feet.
Oh, is it that big? Jeez.
Depends on what they hit.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm gonna kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. When we got mortared, we were in the middle of a sand pit.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like this big sand area, right? So a mortar round came in and hit near my rig, and a huge hole, right? I'd say this hole was maybe 20 feet in diameter.
Wow, that's big.
Big. Then another round came in, and the crater was about 8 feet deep, something like that.
That's big. That's
maybe 6 to 8 feet deep, something like that. And then another round came in and landed in the exact same spot and was still sitting there. So it depends on what they hit. So if it would hit the rig, it would have just like, and the rigs are made out of like air frame quality aluminum.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not.
It's not bulletproof. Nothing like that. There's no.
Yeah. There's nothing.
And we sandbag it to help protect from shrapnel. But if it took a direct hit, it would do a lot of damage and probably hurt the person inside, most likely.
I remember reading a book, maybe it was last year. It's a great book about Civil War and also World War I. And one was the Battle of the Somme, and then one was the Battle of Gettysburg, and which they made into a great movie. And but they just talked about. They said the mortars, and I mean obviously this is way back when with less effective mortars, but they really said that they weren't afraid of the mortars as much as it was just an incredible nuisance that just kept it just prevented you from ever getting comfortable.
Yeah, because it's meant as a suppression tool, kind of like the M60 machine gun. It's a suppression tool, but if they get you, it's going to do a lot of damage. But it's meant to terrorize,
to beat you down,
terrorize you, demoralize you,
yeah,
and just keep making you rebuild what they knocked down, right? And if they hit something, yay. If they don't hit anything, well, they'll just come back the next day and try it again. So they would do that every night, and then finally there came a ceasefire.
And how many mortars per night?
It was continuous.
So all night long,
Well,
is it one every hour?
Put it this way. No, it was more. Put it this way. When I first got in country, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah,
because it would be going on all night.
Right.
And then the Turkish guards that we had up on top of the buildings, they would be either taking the rounds, or they'd be near misses, and they'd be shooting out.
Taking the rounds. What do you mean?
Taking the mortar rounds, taking the hits, right? Because they were.
Did they lose soldiers?
We never asked.
Oh, really? So you don't
we didn't really communicate with them because they were kind of unto themselves, and I never had a reason to go talk to them. Sorry.
They were there by the UN as well.
Yeah, we were all part of the UN forces. So I never really took it upon myself to go talk to them, and they were kind of standoffish and really you didn't want to get on their bad side, and I don't speak Turkish.
Yeah.
So.
No, I have a friend who's he always tells his dad's Greek, and they run a gas station, and it was all Turkish guys, and I guess there was some sort of adversarial relationship between Greeks and Turks, but they get along really well. But my friend used to always tell me, the Turks are a little bit different than I don't know.
Yeah, these guys, you didn't want to mess with them.
Yeah, it's very severe, right? Very serious. Is that?
Well, they were, because they're under fire every night.
Yeah.
Plus, they were the only personnel that I knew of that were on our buildings while we were sleeping. They were the ones guarding us. We had our own guards too, but they were the ones on top taking all the fire and shooting out, trying to hit them, But they were the only ones that I knew of that were locked and loaded at all times. When we were in the barracks, what they call the barracks, which was the dorms of the university, which were all blown out, no electricity, no water. We basically built them up ourselves and created our own electricity through generators, and we didn't have running water, but we would have blivets, and the water was channeled to us through pumps. Right. So so they were the ones taking the rounds, and they were very grim. I mean, they're just you knew better than to just like be too relaxed with them. Plus, they have a job to do, so you didn't want to distract them. You didn't want to get too friendly with them anyway because they were scary looking.
Yeah.
and I'm 21 years old, 22, so I'm not like really confident in my own ability to be, there are these guys up there protecting our lives, and I'm not going to diminish that with asking stupid questions like, hey, what's going on? It's like I left them alone. I never really felt compelled to go talk to them, just because it wasn't I don't want to say condoned, but it wasn't encouraged. They wanted us to leave them alone, let them do their job, don't mess with them, just do your job.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. So because we weren't interlocked in our mission.
Well, the United States and Turkey have a bizarre relationship military-wise. Like we're dependent, but then also it's like we're not inviting each other to each other's birthday parties, right?
Well, back then I think the UN and that mission, UN really came together well in that one instance to do the proper thing, which was alleviate the starvation and try to bring relief to the famine ridden suffering area and people. And so our mission was to just get these folks food and water. But a dean had control of the seaport, I believe, at that point.
A dean, like a dean in the college? What did you say?
A deed.
Oh, that's right.
The warlord, right? So he had control of all this stuff. So he was the one distributing food, but in such a small amount that people were still starving. Right. So my biggest.
But when this happens, like these guys are just for depending on like they're holding back on some of the food to monetize it, right? To make it a more valuable commodity to make profits. Or is it they don't have the infrastructure to get it out?
No. He was saving it because they were only getting a certain amount. And he wanted to save it for his militia.
Oh, okay.
And probably invoke some kind of control over the populace.
Yeah.
Like I'm the guy. You got to come through me and get some food. And they would, the movie Black Hawk Down. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of what happened in that movie was, over dramatized, but a lot of it was not incorrect. I'm going to say some of it was, for movie effect and all that.
I figured for the action scenes were probably a little embellished or something, or the close calls
I wasn't in that,
embellished.
but my closest interaction to that, because I was there during that, and so my job was to communicate.
Who was the soldier that got held prisoner?
I don't remember his name.
He was shot down, right?
Pilot. Yeah.
Yeah, pilot. Oh, sorry, go on.
So they, my job was to provide communications for those folks, and my job in particular was to provide communications between those folks and the general, right? I can't remember his name. Anyway, so my only interaction with that whole situation and event was me reporting back that there was only enough remains left of the shot down pilots after they mutilated them was enough to fill a laundry bag. So I had to relay that information vocally to the general's headquarters. So I did that, and that was really my only interaction during that whole event. Other than that, all I did was provide communications for all parties and all the parties everywhere. And that was our unit's job, was to provide communications and supply it, erect the antenna apparatus, and provide the communications.
So if I get you sidetracked, keep your own thought, because I do always. So you're sending communications. Question, I guess you did that verbally. You tell the guy, hey, here's the deal. Or,
on the radio.
Oh, you were on the radio.
So he told the guy that was at the helicopter's crash sites. They were with the recovery teams.
Yeah.
And they recovered all the remains of these folks
mutilated bodies,
right.
Unfortunately.
And so he said, tell General, of his name, Nelson, tell them there's only enough remains left to fill a laundry bag. So that's like.
And how many soldiers was that?
I think it was 2 or 3 that were confirmed like mutilated. So they basically dismembered them.
Yeah.
And just.
I don't know. There's a book. The guy Sebastian Junger.
I remember the name.
And there's a book War, and then he also did Restrepo, the movie where it's the first point. And he also wrote the Perfect Storm, is how he's famous. But basically the tail end of the rest of his career, he's been following around soldiers and stuff like that.
Okay.
And he did this one thing in war, and he talks about really cool because we deal with like say cortisol is like the stressor that comes stress hormone that comes out when we exercise, which is important. But they did research on frontline soldiers and then rear support soldiers, and they took it was their cortisol levels, and they were saying that going into battle, right, the foot soldier, his cortisol level is incredibly high until the first shot is fired, and then it drops. And then they say the back office guys is absolutely the opposite. Is that they're eating Twinkies and Yoo-Hoos, and the high fiving, whatever. And then the second a shot is fired, their cortisol level spikes. And the only thing I can think of is what would be your answer to that?
I would say it's
training.
Based upon my experience, yes,
Yeah.
it's becoming acclimated to the.
You know what to do once a shot's fired, right? You don't know what
Yes.
to do when you don't know when nothing.
Well, it depends on your training.
Yeah.
It depends on, are you acclimated to that scenario or are you not? Are you prepared? Did you prepare? Did you plan? Did you prepare yourself for that eventuality? Like, for example, when I was on M60 gunner duty, what was happening is I would be on convoy to the distant ends of the communications network. So we have to go out of the perimeter on these convoys to the distant end, which is another signal node, and go relieve those soldiers or do something for them that they needed, right? So you have to go on these convoys, and so of course me being the M60 gunner, I'm sitting on top of the cab, like, hey, look at me, please nail me.
Yeah, I've
right?
always figured that seems like the job that you don't want.
No, well,
But it
back
looks
then,
cool.
back then I was like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
do this
yeah,
job,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's gonna be, I'm gonna do the best I can and do the best of my ability, and nothing's gonna get by me. I'm gonna perform at the 100% level that I know that I can.
Uh-huh.
And so, being trained on the M60, it's training differently than M16 gunner, right? So, so the M60 gunner's priority is just downrange and then make sure whatever you're firing at, they keep the heads down,
Right.
suppression fire. Well, they stuck me on the lead vehicle, the M60, and I'm like, okay. So I'm in the lead vehicle, and was it lead vehicle? Maybe the second vehicle. And so I ran into these situations where the cortisol level was, for me, not being trained in combat situations, not as an infantryman, my cortisol level was high, right? Because I was not accustomed to doing this, right?
This is one of the things I never can. The reason I never joined the military is because I was afraid. I'm not gonna.
I was too stupid to be afraid.
I'm not. I
Well,
totally was afraid.
I joined for. I joined believing that we were never going to go to war because I figured, oh, nobody's stupid enough to go to war. It's nuclear powers. But in my mind, I didn't think guerrilla warfare.
That's totally advanced. I thought I was going to get shot, and I was recruited by like the Naval Academy to play football, and I was just like, geez, I don't want to drown. Like, I don't know if you want to say there's certain people that you obviously by you. I know like there's like people like my cousin, and then there's friends of mine. Like my cousin jumped out of airplanes with the airborne, and and then he still does it. And I don't know. I just couldn't do that. I'd be petrified the whole time. It's just like you're on top. So here you are. You're on top of a truck. You've got an M60, and all you do is have like a 1/4-inch steel plate or a 1/2-inch steel plate.
Nothing.
No plate.
Nothing.
All right, what the hell? It's like going to the beach and then going like, it's like going to Hawaii. No,
that's how.
Going
That's
to
how.
dude.
You've heard the stories about our soldiers going to Iraq without.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have the bottom support.
Right. No shielding whatsoever. That was us. And so
why did that happen? Like, I mean, that was just ridiculous.
Because I'm in communications, so they're not like, well, he's not an infantry soldier. I mean, he is. Right. He's a glorified infantry soldier that knows how to put a phone system together and put a radio system together, and knows how to implement satellite and cable communications. Knows how to do that. So, but if you take all that stuff away, he's an infantry soldier.
Right.
But they didn't train me for infantry. Right. They trained me basic training for infantry.
And then you specialize.
Right. Specialized in communications. So when you get to Somalia and they're like, here's the M60. I mean, they trained me up on the M60 beforehand. So we started training 6 months out before we left. So it was a rapid deployment unit. So they give you 6 months to train. So they train up, take in the range, and they train you up. And then they send you off to where you're supposed to go, right? Which in this case was Somalia. So that's part of being a rapid deployment unit. You're like, you train you up, they keep training you year round, right? and then when something happens, you're the first people to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what happened in Somalia. So they said they called on us. Our unit was the first one to go. So so they go out there and they put you out there with the M60 machine gun, and like you said, the cortisol level is like freaking high because you don't know what you're like. What? I got this M60. I'm gonna try to calm down. I'm gonna try to put my head on my job. I'm not gonna think about anything else. I'm gonna just focus. And that's what I did. I turned off my emotions because I figured out, because at this time I was missing my girlfriend like crazy. So I figured out, okay, I got to turn off my emotions to not think about her.
Yeah, I heard that that's one of the worst things.
Yeah, so I figured out how to do that. And I kind of knew how to do that anyway because it was a long distance relationship. So I kind of figured out how to do that over the course of time. She was in Germany. I was in Somalia.
Mm-hmm. Was she in the military as well?
No, she was a daughter of a retired major.
Oh, okay.
And I met her in Germany while I was in Germany.
Right.
And then over the course of 2 years, I moved back to the United States. I was stationed back to the United States, and she stayed there with her family, right? So, and she was 17, I was 21,
yeah,
something like that. So, so I learned how to turn off my emotions.
That's tough. I mean, especially when you're 17, because it's one of those things. Turning off what you're trying not to think about what you're thinking about is an incredibly difficult thing to do.
It was not hard.
Don't think about a giraffe right now.
It actually wasn't hard for me because I'd already been doing it because
Really?
the long distance relationship was demanding that.
Yeah.
Because if I allow myself to go into it, I would get super depressed. And
Yeah.
sometimes I was.
Yeah.
Because the long distance, and she's my first
Real
serious
girlfriend.
relationship. Yeah. So I never had a girlfriend before her.
Yeah.
So there's like this heartbreaking.
No, because your first girlfriend is the worst because
Yes.
you're head over heels.
Right, yeah,
You
I
don't know
was.
how to
I
get
was.
out of it.
Yep.
All you want, everyone, where is she?
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
And that was me.
Yeah, I know the feeling. We all.
But by the
every
time I
guy
got to
has been through that,
Somalia, by the time I got to Somalia, I had it under control, and I was able to turn that off. Thank God. So otherwise, they never would have given me the M60. Maybe they gave it to me to get rid of it.
Don't give it to the lovesick. Don't give it to the lovesick puppy.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So I was deeply in love with January. Her name is January.
And
But I was able to turn that off.
There's definitely a joke when sorry. When her name is January, your first girlfriend was named January.
Yeah. So
Fourth girlfriend was April.
So I was able to turn that off. So the cortisol level that you're talking about was way high, just because I was not familiar with the scenario of conducting myself like an infantryman in a combat zone, or our duties then were policing.
Yeah.
But come on, I mean, you're taking mortar fire every night.
That's a different type of policing.
It's
not
like, hey, stop, blow a whistle. You know,
it's not like drivers in the registration license.
Yeah, you had to be, and we had our run-ins with the local militia, if you want to call it that.
Right.
So
these were the guys that were going around with these Toyotas, right? They had red Toyotas, right? White Toyotas were in the Middle East, and red Toyotas were in like Somalia, I think.
Somalia was like whatever they could get their hands on.
And they kind of just rigged these trucks up. They put like mounted guns on them, and I remember this is. I know we're supposed to talk about personal training, but it is Veterans Day, and I'm going to put this on our post for today if you want. We'll take a look.
Fine.
Yeah, it's to me because my uncle was a crew chief in Vietnam for a helicopter. He said he was shot down 3 times, and he said he was shot up, going up twice. He said going up is much worse than getting shot down. So getting shot down, you can kind of coast into things. He goes, you crash into the trees. And he's like saying, it's like, I'm like, no, I don't know. Like, you've fallen out of the sky. I'm like, this is not normal. And no matter how many times, he's like, well, you got to do it this. And I'm like, no. I mean, that's like, to me, this is, and it's just, I can't imagine.
You can't conceptualize it.
Yeah, this is above my level.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm talking to you about it so much, because I'm sure there's like a lot of people like me that I think that, lack of a better word, I don't have the balls to be in the military. I'm not that brave. I'm not that guy.
You probably are.
No, I'm not. I'm not, without a doubt. I mean, I know I'm not.
I can't recruit you right now.
No, you're not. I'm not that brave. No.
Okay.
So, like, I see guns, and like, I probably should go in the other direction. I know that that's not what you do in the military, and I'm really glad that and I do, I'm one of these people, I do believe in a strong military. I believe that, military importance is very important in our country. I believe everything. I'm glad that people like you still join, and like you said, you go 110% in everything you did with it, and that's really cool. And I don't know if I got to everything that you wanted to do. Is there anything else about this? I mean, I'll go on for days with you.
I'll let you.
Yeah.
I would just say, well, I grew up around weapons. My father taught me how to shoot.
So you're still a gun guy now? Like you go?
I don't have any. It's New York City.
Well, I'm actually my cousin, who maybe if he's on here, he's going to take me to a range out on Long Island if you want to go too.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Yeah, I believe it's on like in Riverhead, like in the North Fork or something
That'd
like that.
Be amazing.
Yeah, I've never. He said he'll go with me, although he brought his wife before me, and I'm a little upset that the wife. I mean, I guess she is more important than your long lost cousin, but you know.
Yeah, I haven't been to a range since the military.
I know of like two.
I never owned any weapons after that.
So. I would like to go just because it's just something I've really never done, and I think I should. It's just something I think I should do. That's really cool. And so, and then you did get, so you're getting mortar rounds. Did you ever get, and you got what, like, not, I wouldn't be small arms fire, right?
Snipers, yeah, but.
Did you get snipers in rounds?
Oh, sure.
That's got to make you shit a brick. I'm sorry for that.
Well,
for lack of another word, or is it you don't even know it's.
Back then I was too stupid to, so I would go up on top of the building and sunbathe. And, you know, back
You have any more Tropicana? What is it? Yeah, the golden one, the coconut oil.
Me and Kevin would go up there and sunbathe all the time. And then
you'd
have helicopter pilots come over. It's like, what the hell are they doing down there?
That's Apocalypse Now.
But I was stupid.
I went to the beach. I went to Vietnam, and I was like, I went to Da Nang, which was at the beach, I believe, that they was in the favorite, the scene, the Flight of the Valkyries, I believe, is the song, and they're dropping in, and so they can go surfing. Yep. So soldiers do sunbathe in the middle of war zones. Did you get small arms fire while you were?
We got sniper fire, but I didn't take any direct fire while sunbathing.
Sunbathing today? Guy laid out of sunbathing.
I mean, it's the right moment.
Fannin! Sunbathing patrol! Good luck, son!
If you do it during prayer, you're probably not going to get shot at. So that we would,
they tell you.
So they had the speakers, and they would, in the minarets, and they would do this, the prayers.
I was just watching a thing about the Battle of Vicksburg, and they were saying the only time that the citizens could get out is when they knew that the gunners were going to be changed because they were living in these caves. And so they're only when the gunners or the mortar guys had their lunch or when they ate 3 times a day was when all the civilians would come out and get out of these caves for a little while, and then they'd go right back in. But that was one of the things that I read from reading so many books about the military, and I read World War II books. I'm reading a World War II book now that's about with Ethiopia fighting Italy, and which that seems like that was an unfair battle in a way. It's like. From what I understand, the guys in Ethiopia had spears, and the Italians had tanks and armored vehicles. However, they buffered their soldiers by using conscripted, other Ethiopians that were, I don't know, so they kind of created a civil war. I don't know this whole thing.
Proxy.
Yeah, well, I think what the Italians did in this thing is that they had to, they were fighting these Ethiopians. And what they did is they got like a tribe that didn't like the Ethiopian tribe that they were fighting to be in front of their tanks, so that they were like their buffer. I know Genghis Khan used to do that with a lot of his soldiers. He would take all these, he would take all the prisoners.
Cannon fodder.
Yeah, and he'd put them out in front as cannon fodder, and they would.
Because you only have so many rounds.
Oh, the other team.
The other team. The other
side.
Team.
Look at me. It's not sports, Pat.
The other side's got so many rounds. If the people that you don't like suck up all those rounds, less rounds you have to deal with. Right?
That's what Genghis Khan did. He would put these people forward. Yeah. Although he had some of his. You ever study any Genghis Khan stuff with?
I've watched stuff, history.
Their whole thing was that they would ride their horses, they would shoot their arrows while they rode it, and then then as they circled around, they'd be shooting while they were going, leaving the site. Yeah. But before they did that, they would take all, en masse, all the people that the prisoners, or, probably the husbands of all the wives that they stole and stuff like that. And they're like, well, he's not, we don't need him anymore. And they put them out there. Yeah. And there's this book by this guy, Con Golden. He writes a whole bunch of these types of military books. And he writes one about a story about these guys that, were taken captive in Budapest when Genghis Khan went as far as Budapest. And they find themselves all the way in China, and they don't even know what they're doing, but all they know is that they have to lead this attack on this big wall, and if they go back this way, they're going to get shot, or they're going to get killed by the Mongolians. If they go back this way, they're going to be killed by the Chinese, and they're just, and the one guy, it's historical fiction, and the one guy somehow survives. and it's like kind of his story from there.
Right.
This is pretty cool, man. I will cut some of this up, but let's get back to, hey, so I got off the track as, this is Pat Gillis, an interview as a trainer with Trey Fannin, who's also a trainer, and we just did a little bit of stuff because of Veterans Day, but let's get really back up. You have time to answer
Sure.
these questions that we were supposed to talk about? How has COVID affected your business?
Dramatically. In New York City, the gyms all shut down, so it's basically relegated us to me and a lot of our fellow trainers in the community to virtual training.
Yeah.
Or I've gotten a little bit lucky because I train people with special needs.
Okay,
So,
really?
Yeah, so I have clients I have one client in particular, he has Parkinson's. So I have
You weight training with him?
at this point, no, because his gym shut down too.
But
in his building.
so there have been these theories that strength training is good for Parkinson's.
Absolutely.
Or something like
I used to
deadlifting.
I used to box with him.
Well,
I grew up boxing. My father, like I said, taught me.
However, boxing can cause Parkinson's, right? I mean,
Well, if you hit him in the head.
The guy Freddie,
We're not doing that.
Manny Pacquiao's fighter.
Yeah, we're not hitting
trainer.
in the head. When I say boxing, I mean like just hit the pad.
Yeah.
So this boxing regimen or training is good for Parkinson's because you want to create the need for a quick response.
But you know who the guy I'm talking about? Manny Pacquiao's trainer?
Yes.
Freddie, whatever I think his
Yep.
name is. And that's what he was talking about, his Parkinson's was getting bad.
Yep.
But he loved to hold the pads
Yeah.
because he said that made him feel good again.
Sure. It gets the blood going and you just feel invigorated.
So that's a big thing. So special needs, and like, I think it's important for all of us to kind of get our bodies moving and get feeling good.
So for him, what I did was I asked his wife to purchase a massage table, and I do all the training that is required on the table with resistance tubing or resistance bands,
Mm-hmm.
and I apply my own body weight to the resistance tubing, and then have him do his motions resisting the tubes. So in this way, he doesn't lose all his muscle tone. As you know, Parkinson's is a degenerative disease,
Right.
so he's not getting better because of the training. It's just we're keeping him as comfortable as possible and
Right.
trying to keep his functionality as high as possible. Keep him walking. You don't want to have a bedridden person anyway.
Right.
So we're trying to keep him out of bed as much as possible.
Any other special needs people? Or
Alzheimer's patients.
oh, really?
Yeah. And then I do, like I mentioned earlier, post rehab
Yeah.
clients. So there's a lot of those folks in our demographic,
Mhm.
in the retiree demographic. So if I go to their house or their apartment, I can train them with resistance tubing.
Mhm.
Don't have to have weights. You
Right.
can use resistance tubing. You can use a ball. You can use different ways to just become.
I found that I use
Inventive.
over the coronavirus and the quarantine, I end up basically doing body weight exercises and elastic
Yeah, sure.
bands for
Sure.
6 months, which is I mean, this is probably, it was the longest time that I've ever been away from weightlifting since I was
Yeah.
9 years old. You know, I blew up my knee when I played football in college. I took 3 months off. I think I ballooned up to 27 pounds with a 36-inch waist, and then I went back to lifting weights and getting back into shape again. But the weird thing is, I really liked I didn't like the bands at first, and I was never an advocate for bands. I was always an advocate for free weights. I felt that was better. However, I stayed in shape. I mean, I probably could put on some more muscle mass. I don't have as much muscle mass as I did in the beginning, but I definitely stayed in shape. I kept everything going. When I started lifting regular weights again, my body didn't feel right. Did you notice? I mean, did you feel that way at all?
Of course, because you haven't lifted. I mean, I kept in shape by, I have a log.
Uh-huh.
You know what a log is?
Yeah.
So I use that at home in my own apartment, and then I carry, I have sandbags. I have a 270-pound sandbag apparatus I need to pick up and put down. So I was able to lift heavy weight with just, for the core engagement.
Yeah.
But I'm not over there, pumping iron. I don't have a dumbbell set
Right.
necessarily because I don't have that much space. And I just use resistance. I don't really need to lift the dumbbells and lift the barbells, and there's not enough space for me to do that. But I do have space for a small log, And
So it turns out I don't know what a log is. I thought you meant like a log that you write things
Oh,
down
no,
in a book.
no, I have a strong influence from strongman training. One of my good friends, Hans Perman, he has his own strongman training gym in Brooklyn, and I trained with him for years as a colleague at the New York Health and Racquet Club on 13th Street.
And HRC is out of business now?
Yeah, they shut the doors permanently. So I trained with him a lot, and he taught me. This guy is amazing. If you ever get a chance to go to Brooklyn and train with strongman,
Where in Brooklyn?
I don't remember exactly where it is, but you look up Global Strongman Gym, and you'll find Hans Perman's.
I love Brooklyn. I wish I had an excuse to get there more often. I mean, I have a few clients in Brooklyn, but they're downtown Brooklyn. You know, like my wife once says, "Oh, why don't you, have your business here?" And I'm like, "Honey, we live on the Upper East Side. Like, this is where we are." But I really do like going over to Brooklyn. I think.
But he's a fantastic gentleman, and a huge influencer in my personal training doctrine and philosophy. So the log is an apparatus that we use in training, in strongman training, to facilitate furthering your training so that you can pick up stones.
Is it? I mean, it's a lot. What does it look like? Like, is that the thing?
You can
Is
find
that
logs. You can actually, but they actually used to be only logs. In strongman competitions, they sometimes have a log.
Well, they use that the stone.
And they got-
That the big stone that you have to put up on top. You know that one?
That's the stone lifting.
Yeah,
right?
that
the
that's
log
tough.
is a prerequisite to helping you learn how to. Although the log lifting is an event of its own, it can be an event of its own. But I believe that helps you lift stones better, right? So there's a hierarchy of events that you do and then stones being kind of like the ultimate lift in strongman training. It's like one of the premier events in strongman competition, right? So I would train with Hans on doing all this strongman training, and the log is an implementation of this doctrine of getting stronger so you can lift the stone. So the log it could be a log with two handles stuck in it,
Yeah.
like
okay.
sawed out,
Right.
hollowed out, and you're literally lifting a log that's a certain amount of weight, right? Or you can get them manufactured, and Hans knows a guy that builds them. I don't know if he's building them now, but I got one from him, and it's a 55-pound steel tube, hollowed out, or it's not hollowed, but it's hollowed out. It's hollow, and he's got handles welded in there, and you've got two bars on it that you apply weight to. So you've got a 55-pound log. There's 90-pound logs. I don't know if there's anything heavier than a 90-pound log, but you apply plates to it, and you just go to town, and you start training.
Those are great things to use.
It's awesome because what it does is it makes you hold it in a 90-degree angle versus horizontal, which is can be pinching the shoulder, right? So a dumbbell or barbell press, overhead barbell press, can cause problems for somebody that has shoulder problems, make it worse. But the log is awesome because you don't have that just boom like that. And
well, I mean, I have shoulder issues. I mean, my first shoulder issue was from playing high school football. I mean, I ended up with someone like super early bruising my bicep tendon, which essentially kind of shortened it, and what I thought was rotator cuff was actually long head bicep tendonitis, and so that, I mean, shoulder. I would have to say, if you exercise, especially if you lift, you're going to end up with a shoulder injury somewhere in the course of your exercising lifestyle.
High potential.
Yeah, and then exercising through injuries. What about that? Like, my thing is that I came from an athletic background, and so my problem that I think that I don't know if it's a problem, but what's given me problems is that I've always had this attitude of playing through pain. And I enjoy working out, and once I get my body going, I really like it, and everything loosens up. So lots of the tendonitis pain goes away, and then I overtrain only to hurt myself down the road. How's your strength now compared to how you were 20 years ago? A 30-year-old Trey as opposed to 50-year-old Trey. Bench press, squat, how is it?
Well, now it's bad because no access to gyms.
Right.
So I'm just now starting. I just started lifting again because the gym's just opened.
Right.
So now I'm starting. So citing my bench now would be stupid because I'm just now like I'm a toddler again with training people.
Well, I don't want to sound silly, but how much you bench, yo? What do you bench?
It's embarrassingly low at this point because and that goes back into doctrine and philosophy on how to train with injury.
Mhm.
I do have rotator cuff problems because of playing softball for
Yeah.
15, 20 years, and so I tore my rotator cuff,
Right.
or teres minor, and in the Army playing softball, I made a throw from right field to third base, threw him out,
Right.
but I felt that pop, and
Well, you know,
so
the thing
anyway,
is, with trainers, let me just say, so you're 50 years old, you have injuries, you have experience. I think that's you know, in this whole business, I mean, most of our clientele, they're going to have injuries. They're going. It really definitely helps to have a trainer with this type of like 20 years experience. Like,
yeah.
you know, a guy might have a six pack, but his dad and mom might have a six pack without doing anything to it. Like, you know, we don't
all have
their-
six packs.
Yeah,
It's
we're
a matter
just.
of,
It's the insulation. It's in the cooler.
Yeah, is your fat content in your body weight covering it or not, showing it or not?
Yeah, this is like your igloo cooler, right? You got the six pack down there. Right now I got my ice in it, you know, I trimmed down with that comes.
So to get back to your question, what's my take or philosophy on training through injury is it depends on, okay, so my feeling is always err on the side of caution. So if somebody, let's say for example, if somebody's in pain, I have developed, I should say, a tendency or I require myself to slow down.
When you're injured or they're injured.
Me and my client. If they develop an injury, or if they are complaining of an injury and I haven't trained them yet, because I do have a pretty good track record of not injuring my clients.
Yeah, it's one of the best track records you can have.
Because the reason why I feel I'm proud of that status is because if somebody starts complaining about something, I immediately stop and I assess the situation. Why are they feeling pain? Where is it? Why are you feeling it? I ask myself, why are they feeling it? I don't usually ask them why they're feeling, because they don't know, generally speaking. They may know, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to be relying on me. Why am I hurting right here? So I have to figure out what they're doing that's causing an imbalance, causing a compensation. Once I've determined what the compensation is based upon the physical evidence, which is them doing a motion with an imbalance or compensation, then I determine what is most likely the problem, and I attempt to correct that issue if indeed that is the problem. So I'll do a process of elimination. Okay, so if something is painful in the knee, so I'll use the knee for example. If you're having pain in your kneecap,
right?
Ow, I can't squat, I can't lunge.
Right.
I get this a lot, right? I'll say, okay, so my first reaction is going to be, where is it? So if, let's say they feel it in front of the kneecap. So let's say, okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is roll the IT band. Make sure the IT band is not knotted up.
My thing is I just always put my thumb in there, right, in this IT band, and if they make that noise, they go, ah! Then I'm like, all right, let's go. It could be.
You're talking about the adductor and the IT.
All I do is if someone complains about their knee, I go, all right,
Yeah.
I'm going to do something to you if we're going to see it might hurt, and then I go and I push my thumb in, and if they go, ah! If I hear that noise,
Yeah.
then I'm like, all right, we're probably that's the first problem. Let's get your IT band.
So I'll get their IT
rolled
band.
out.
Yeah, I'll attack the IT band and see if that's the problem. If that's not the problem, if there doesn't seem to be much problem there, then I'll go to the adductor and roll that and see
Interior part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say, what's going on there? Do you feel anything there? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be one of these two issues.
Right, yeah.
Because it'll pull the kneecap
Exactly.
left, right off its groove, right?
Yeah.
In the tibia.
And
right?
that's that. Well, you get the two different pains are IT band syndrome is nondescript pain in the knee and in the hip where you can't really pinpoint.
You can't really feel any pain in the IT band until you roll it.
Right. And then
Right.
yeah, you don't feel
And
it.
same thing
until-
for the adductor.
And then the other thing is what patella, the other one when it pulls the patella,
Patellofemoral syndrome.
which I had a few years ago,
Yep.
and that's a weird injury because you don't feel it until you sit down at the end of the night, and then like everything from here just burns, or actually it had me to the point where which I didn't realize how much I enjoyed walking because at times I couldn't walk, and I thought and because I had this attitude with so much tendinitis in my life that it's like once I get my body moving, the pain will go away.
That's because it warms up and it gets used to the.
But that doesn't happen when your patella's not tracking properly. It just gets worse and worse. It's what it
Depends on how
seems to me.
sensitive you are.
Yeah, geez, I
Sometimes,
guess.
for me.
Saying I'm a sensitive man.
No, you want to be sensitive. Everybody should be sensitive about
Look at my
this.
tissues over here, man.
I mean, I want people to be sensitive. I pay attention to
Uh-huh.
because that's what an elite athlete is. they're a hypersensitive individual.
Yeah, you know exactly
you
what's
know
going
when
on.
something's
with
going
your
on,
body.
you stop.
Yes.
You're like, okay, that's why you see these guys hop off the football field, and then they're back 5 minutes later because they fixed whatever imbalance was going on. If some muscle was tight or they cramped up, whatever, they're hobbling off. They're like, oh man, that guy's bad, right? He comes back 5 minutes later, like, what the hell's going on? He's hypersensitive, and he's like, I'm gonna stop doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna go to the sideline. I'm gonna get checked out, and they're gonna figure out what's wrong with me. And then if I'm okay, then they're gonna send me back out there to play.
That was one of the biggest things I learned as a personal trainer. When I first started training, was how many people had no idea how their bodies worked. I remember this guy's like, all right, we're doing curls. I'm like, you know what part of your body working? Legs? I'm like, why? He's like, well, we're standing up and I got a lot of weight. And I'm like, all right, man, you know,
that's okay.
You know you're not wrong.
You know what? The
you're
customer's always right.
The customer's always right. But there you go, buddy. Leg day. Let's go. Let's pump them out.
Exactly. But hey, if you're balancing on one leg, you're doing legs.
That's it. You are doing legs. If you balance. If you're standing on 2 legs, you're still doing legs.
You're still doing legs. But so getting back to the knee thing. So I'm gonna figure out what's going on with you, why it's hurting, and we're gonna try to figure it out before I say, okay, let's go do some more squats. And we're gonna get rid of that pain, and then we're going to continue on after that. So my philosophy is stop what you're doing, let's assess, let's find out what exactly is causing the pain, if we can. I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to assess you as best I can. And if you need to go to a physical therapist, I'm the first person to say, you need to go to get an MRI, you need to go to get a physical therapy session, or be.
You have a physical therapist that you work with that like you.
Yeah. Her name is Stephanie Payne.
Oh, Stephanie Payne.
Stephanie Payne. Name. Yeah, she works in the East Village at the House of Pain. Payne. So
I have a guy that I use out on East End, Long Island, Brendan Lenahan, and then right here at the Manhattan Athletic Club we have John. I don't know John's last name. I only know, and we refer business back and forth that from right here. But the good thing, the one thing that I always found with the personal trainer is when the personal trainer also talks after they talk about stretching and range of motion, they talk about building up strength in the injury. That's usually one, to me, that's like the telltale sign that you have a good physical therapist.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing to have someone tell you. And then the personal trainer is going to, the first thing the personal trainer should do is make sure that the stability of the joint is taking place, or if the joint is a problem. So that if you have somebody that's saying to you, okay, you're just coming out of physical therapy, your range of motion is nearly 100%. We're going to continue your flexibility training. We're going to continue your range of motion training and elaborate on that and get you stronger in that. Because you have to remember, the physical therapist's job is to get you to 100% range of motion with no pain, hopefully, right? The post-rehab specialist
is get
stronger, elaborating what she or he did, the physical therapist, and then segue away from that eventually and graduate to a higher level of functionality, which is going to incorporate balance in the joints.
The thing is I think one of the big takeaways I'm having from our conversation is that you're teaching me something that I didn't know, was that physical therapists are there to get range of motion. And
that's their number one priority, is to get you 100% range of motion without pain.
The reality is, I mean, if you're going to go see a physical therapist, you should see a personal trainer afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, you want to see a personal trainer with post-rehab experience, post-rehab specialities, which is another.
Well, I remember you and I actually started off at New York Health and Racquet Club for a little while too, and I remember there was a guy who took over the training thing there, the training program, and he and I butt heads a lot, and one of the main things that like what he would do is he would recruit. He would just look for young people that were in incredible shape. He said I went to Foot Locker, and like I would talk to someone who's a trainer. He's like, well, he came up to me. I was in Foot Locker, and he said, "You're in really good shape. You want to make $50 an hour as a personal trainer as opposed to working at Foot Locker." And the guy said, "Yeah, of course I do." And so that's what this guy. And I think that's a lot of people are swayed when they look on Instagram and they look on all these little commercials. It's just because someone has a six-pack and they're banging ropes and throwing tires and climbing on boxes. That's all well and good, but that doesn't mean that's going to that they can translate what they're doing to your body, which is not their body.
Right. They're accustomed to training themselves.
Yeah, and they
They know how to
they
do it.
might not even have to do that. I mean, there are
Yeah.
people that are freaks of nature. I mean, there are people I know that they just. There was a guy that I played football with. He just didn't have lunch one afternoon, and he won a bodybuilding contest. He says like, I skipped lunch. That was
Yeah,
it.
so he was shredded already.
Yeah, and he didn't even really lift weights. I mean, he played football at full time, and he was a very good football player. But you know, he lifted weights maybe once or twice a week. He was just an absolute, you know, freak of
Monster.
nature. Yeah, and great thing. So we want. There's a lot going on here. So I just had. So Trey, again, well, so our initial episode right here of interview the trainer. Trey also has his what's your thing? Your other freak? What is it called?
It's called Fannon's Fitness Freaks on Facebook, and then I refer to it as the Freak Zone. But if you look up Fannon's Fitness Freaks, you'll find me on Facebook.
Say it again.
Fannon's Fitness Freaks.
Fannon's Fitness Freaks. Triple F's.
Yes.
We got the F trifecta. Fannon's Fitness Freaks.
Yes.
All right, good. That's
Real tongue twister.
That's a tongue twister. That's
But you won't forget it.
No, I'm not. They got the 3 F's, all right? Fannon's Fitness Freaks.
There you go.
Once again, this is Pat Gillis, and this is our initial episode of Interview the Trainer. We have Trey Fannon from Fannon's Fitness Freaks. I am Pat Gillis, an aging athlete, trying to help everybody and other athletes age gracefully. Real quickly, I just want to go through some bullet points. You've been a trainer for how long now?
20 years.
Do you enjoy it?
Absolutely.
Has there ever been a point when you thought you might want to do something else?
Never.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I wanted to make more money maybe, but at the end of the day, like all my friends are stressed out about their jobs, and I'm like, you know, if somebody misses a workout, it's not that bad. And as long as you don't hurt your clients.
Right. My philosophy on that was you have the rest of your life to work out. Now, that doesn't mean you're supposed to wait for the rest of your life to end, then go work out. But
Yeah.
if you miss a workout, it's not the end of the world because you are determined to come back to your regular scheduling programming because you're committed.
What's your favorite exercise that you would say to give to everybody? Like, what's your favorite exercise to bestow on people?
Wow.
I'll give you mine. Mine is the
Okay.
hanging leg raise.
The hanging, okay.
Like,
That's
and
a
I
good
start off people with the slings.
Sure.
And then if they're strong enough, I say just do it from a pull-up position and then bring it up because
Right.
to me that's it's
Okay.
also it's a great show-off exercise.
Right. Okay, so I do have one that it's a go-to for me
Uh huh.
to develop core strength and functionality as well as coordination. It's called the air cycle, and I learned it from the military. And in the military, in basic training, that's one of their huge exercises. If you're special forces, Navy SEALs, you always see these films with these guys doing flutter kicks, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's all over the military. Everybody in the military does them. And but I was horrible at it. I sucked, and my lower back was killing me all the time. So I'd always put my hands in
Fannon's
shape
flutter kicks.
and put it underneath my sacroiliac
Right.
joint, and that helped me learn how to stabilize without killing my lower back. Well, I've graduated from that obviously over all the years, and what I do is I now put weights in my hands, 3 up to 10 pounders in my hands, and conduct the air cycle on my rump, right? So I'm elevating my upper body, my legs are up, and I'm conducting an air cycle, that's one of my go-tos, and everybody hates it when I make them do
You're
it.
on your butt on the
butt.
ground. So
So
it's
you're
almost
balancing
like right.
on your butt.
So it's basically like the bicycle exercise
It's an air
that's
cycle.
elevated.
That's why I call it an air cycle. So you're doing it with weights. You don't have to use weights, but you can just use your hand and make sure it's
The air cycle.
I call it the air cycle, and it's a killer.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do that one. I do a lot of abs and stuff like that in the bicycle. Yeah, oh, that sounds tough. And I'm not saying, yeah.
It's fun because
No,
once you master
no,
it,
it doesn't sound
you
fun.
feel like you can do any. You can feel like you can do any ab exercise after you do that because you're like, I got everything after this.
I'll say one of the things to everybody, and I'm a personal trainer, and my clients will say, geez, Pat, you should be able to do that. And there's a funny trick in personal training, is do somebody else's workout. Do your own workout, and you can go for days.
Yes.
Have somebody else tell you what to do, and they can cripple you. I used to train these Ironman athletes at the New York Athletic Club. And these guys would come in with their Ironman. Everything said Ironman. I mean, they had glasses, they had eyelids. They shut their eyelids. It said Ironman, like across the top. And they were so proud of it. And why not? I mean, it's
Sure,
a great thing. But the cockiness and the arrogance started to annoy me. So I was like, here's the deal. If you can make 15 minutes of this workout I'll give you guys, both of you guys, I'll give you 2 free sessions. What the hell? 15 minutes? I'm an Iron Man. I did 26 miles. I did 110 miles. I did this. I'm like, all right, fine. I had to do plyometrics on a step box. Within 7 minutes, both of them were puking.
Yes.
What the hell did you do to me? Why?
Right.
Like, I'm an Iron Man. Why am I doing this?
I have a story about that. I'm an NASM certified personal trainer. So we go into these classes and these seminars. And one of the first classes I remember taking for NASM was they would say, okay, so we're going to take this muscle bound dude. This guy was, he's a huge guy. And they would say, okay, we're going to test your strength. So they put the arms out, big muscle bound guy, and he's stand there. Okay, now I'm going to push your arms down.
Yeah.
And the guy would just like collapse.
Yeah.
Because
I've seen that.
Aesthetically oriented bodybuilders, they're focusing on the superficial muscle. Not to say that they're not focusing on core strength, but they're really focusing on isolating muscle groups, right? So, and which is great, what they need. But sometimes they can ignore the core, the needs of the core, and so the abs, the core, the transverse abdominis is not engaged when they push down. And they're like, and they just push on the arm and they fold because they didn't prepare to engage their core to withstand the ability to resist pressure on their arms, right? So that's that right there like told me, okay, so it's not all about being the best looking. You should gear your training towards also being able to withstand opposing force.
So and how about, so now we're getting older in life. What do you think about what exercise as you're aging? How are you planning to spend? I'm 52. You're 50. I'm planning on being around for about another 30 years.
I'm going for 100, at least 100.
Dude, you're gonna have no friends. It's not gonna be you. I was like, remember Jim? And everyone's like, no.
I'm not even gonna remember me.
No, I don't remember you. You wake up like, who the hell is this guy fanning?
Who's this guy in the mirror?
Yeah.
So, but all joking aside, I plan on playing sports as long as possible. I'm a huge volleyball player.
Volleyball is a great sport.
I love playing volleyball.
I wish I took up tennis as the one sport I really wish.
I started playing that in high school, and I finally figured out how to serve after about a year. And I was like, okay, this took me a year to learn how to serve. So that was done with that.
Like,
I moved on.
The learning curve is just going a little too slow. I mean, I'm finding myself I'm 52. I definitely cannot do the things I did at 32. However, I do want to be in shape. I want to stay fit. So
I think resistance training
is
with
important.
bands,
yeah,
or some form of resistance that doesn't have to always be weight is super beneficial, and you're going to keep your muscle tone. You may not have the same muscle mass, which is
that's an interesting thing. That's what I'm finding too. I don't think that the bands will give you the mass that weights will give you.
No, of course not.
However, I've 2 golf guys this summer who I trained because of COVID, only using bands. One guy's 62, the other guy's 52. No, 54 is the other guy. They both had the best summers of golf in years, and they're thinking, we're like, maybe this is the bands.
It's the bands because the bands force you to engage your core.
Yeah, they do.
More readily because you
snap back otherwise.
Yeah, right. So you have to engage your core and the balance.
The eccentric motion, or what people call the negative.
Yeah. Right. So all that ties into engaging your core. Well, what do you do when you're swinging a golf club?
Yeah, it's your core.
Right.
Yeah. Core flexibility.
Right. That's exactly right.
Oh, cool. That's good. And then once again, this is Fannon's Fitness Freaks with Trey Fannon. And I am Pat Gillis with Interview the Trainer. This is our initial episode. If we missed a few things, we definitely missed a few things. We definitely got over a few things we spent a little too much time on. Any last words or?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot. Any last words? I would say just when you commit to personal training or training yourself or with the trainer, just be consistent and don't give up and enjoy it. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah, enjoy it. What I always like to ask people, and if you're looking for a trainer, I hit on back here, but one of the biggest things I ask is what do you want to do? Or what do you like doing for exercise? And then I try to take those exercises, add things on, and then I said, what don't you like out of what we did? And then, obviously we're not going to skip things, like we're not going to skip doing cores or whatever, but I'm going to say, like, well, don't worry, you're paying me to have an encyclopedia's worth of knowledge to find another exercise to do that, will do the same thing that exercise does. And so that's it. Aging gracefully is really important. I think resistance training, strength training is something that really has to be added on. Everybody should be lifting weights at least once a week. Everybody should be working on range of motion at least once a week. The other thing is, I think working on core is very important. Working Pilates, I think, is a great thing to add in as we get older. Just working little small motion. So that bodybuilder, right? Had Pilates would have helped him out probably, right?
Oh yeah. Any kind of engagement of the core would have helped him in that moment.
Yeah.
But he probably wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think I'm big and strong and I can hold up somebody pressing on me, they're gonna flex up in here. But if you don't engage your transverse and your pelvic floor muscles, you can be strong as
I remember them doing that as a physical fitness test when I was in college with football. They would use different things, like put your arm out, and the guy's like, "Wow, you're so," and then just push it and shove it away and stuff like that. So again, we did a much longer interview. You're probably going to just see a segment of it. Trey was also a veteran, and today's Veterans Day, so I'd like to look for the interview explaining his time in Somalia, working as a communications expert, and it was interesting. I actually, this was pretty cool. We are here. I am Pat Gillis. I'm the old aging athlete trying to help you age gracefully. Trey Fannin from Fannin's Fitness Freaks. Interview the Trainer is the name of the program. Hopefully we'll see you more often. You'll see us more often. And I think that's all I'm going to have to say for now.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
All right. Excellent. Cool.
All right. You have a good one.
All right, man.